Just introduce myself, the organization, and then certainly want to communicate to our member companies because those are the voices that matter here today. So I know a lot of y'all are familiar with AXPC, but American Exploration and Production Council. We are the trade organization for upstream independence on oil and gas. A diverse membership, both in geographic location across all basins, major basins in the U.S., from the Permian to the Marcellus to Mountain West. Some of our members are more oil-weighted, some of our members are more gas-weighted, but we produce collectively more than 50% of the oil in this country. We produce collectively more than 50% of the natural gas in this country. And I think, as I've come to find out, having been with the organization for only about a month and a half, it's an organization that is as passionate about what we produce here in the U.S., what that means domestically, internationally, but also our environmental stewardship. And you see it every day in the facilities that I've been to. And so with that, why don't I kick it around to our member companies and do just quick introductions, and maybe come back to y'all and then start a little bit of the conversation, if that's okay.
Sure. Hi, I'm Nick Trisanella from Chesapeake Energy. I'm a tax attorney there, and we operate in the Marcellus in Pennsylvania and the Haynesville in Louisiana.
Hi, thank you all for being here as well. I'm Jackie Stewart. Nice to see you again. From Encino Energy, we are headquartered in Houston, and all of our operations are in Ohio. We have 4 rigs running as of this morning and 2 frac crews. So, yeah, that's it.
I'm Hannah Cook. I work with Parker at the American Exploration and Production Council, Washington, D.C. as the Director of Operations and Manager of Affairs.
I'm Rob Boulware with Seneca Resources. We're part of National Fuel Gas Company. We're the sole remaining fully integrated energy company left in the United States that are urging from the drill to the burner. Thank you, Scott.
Hi, I'm Grace Kunk. I'm with the Ohio Business Roundtable. I am a manager of business communications over there and represent the business sector of all Ohio and worship communities and cut members.
And I'm Matt Shepard with Chesapeake Energy, like Nick. Nick's on the tax side. I'm on the government affairs side. And like Nick said, we operate in the Haynesville and the Marcellus. 4 rigs in the Marcellus right now. 3 rigs in the Marcellus right now, 4 in the Haynesville.
I'm Mary Beth Anderson, Antero Resources. Antero has operations right around here, Noble and Monroe County in Ohio, about 240 wells. But the bulk of our operations are in West Virginia, where we have about 1,200 wells. We produce about 40% of the gas every day that comes out of West Virginia. Thank you all so much for coming. And like I was telling Congressman Feenstra, I know this is the beginning of August recess, where you guys are taking the time to do this.
Or was it supposed to be?
No.
Here we are.
That's true. So, Stephen Feisel with Ascent Resources. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We're glad to have you all here. Here in our Cambridge field office, we are the largest producer in Ohio, the second largest private producer in the country. We're headquartered in Oklahoma City, where I office out of, and heavily weighted toward gas. But again, one of the largest producers in the country. Proud member of AXPC. We employ roughly 400 people. About 150 of which are here in Ohio, and we operate in about a 6-county operating area here in Southeast Ohio.
And you know Kevin Hearn.
Yes, ma'am. Hi, my name is Rob Brundrett. I'm the president of the Ohio Oil and Gas Association. Here in Ohio, obviously, we work closely with AXPC and Go West Virginia and others. We represent the entire oil and gas industry in the state of Ohio, upstream, midstream, downstream, but our focus has long been on the producers that are doing all the hard work here in the state of Ohio. Thank you so much for being here, and welcome to Guernsey County.
Thank you. I'm Carol Miller. I was born in Columbus, Ohio. Met a West Virginian in school in South Carolina, and I've lived in West Virginia 50 years. Spent 12 years in the State House, cut my teeth on gas and oil and all forms of energy with Mary Beth years ago. I've been in Congress 6 years. We are on the Ways and Means Committee. I have 2 members with me, Michelle Fischbach, Randy Feenstra, and I will let you introduce yourself for a sec.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I'm Michelle Fischbach from Minnesota. I have been in Congress for, this is my 2nd term, so 4 years now. And before that, I was in the Minnesota Senate for 22 years. But
doing what?
Don't do the math.
Yeah, I say that too.
But, well, I was president of the Senate when I finished up, and then I was lieutenant governor for a short time. But I'm very excited to be part of the tax teams right now. You know, as we look at what's happening, you know, with the 2017 tax.
I'm supposed to say that.
Oh, okay. All right, never mind. But I am very happy to be here, and I'm very glad that Carol is in charge of the supply chains tax team, because they're just critical. And I will say, I think one of the greatest things we have done is the field hearings, because not only are we doing them with the tax teams, but with the whole Ways and Means Committee. And I think it's really important that we get out and talk to people, not just people who will come to D.C. So thank you very much for being here. And I'll flip it back to Carol
to
so
Randy.
she can finish.
Well, this is my second term in Congress from Iowa. I also spent 12 years in the Iowa Senate, chair of Ways and Means. Sort of got a tax background. As professor of business and economics, teaching corporate federal tax. I also was head of a large, or I shouldn't say head of a large candy company, Black Forest Gummy Bears, Salamander Warhead. So, and I'm a passionate supporter of liquid fuels. Obviously, my district is the largest biofuels district in the country. So it all works together. So
I just want you all to know that these two are heavy hitters, very experienced, very knowledgeable. As Michelle started to tell you, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is basically sunsetting in 2025 or coming up for renewal as we look at it. Some of the stuff will stay the same, but our job is to study and to learn and listen and go out. So Chairman Smith divided us up into different tax teams that affect different things. And this one is the supply chain, and it has to do with corporate rate energy taxes. Things like inheritance taxes. If great-granddad owned a farm of 1,000 acres and then granddad farmed it, and then your dad's getting ready to retire and you have 3 brothers and only one of them wants to farm, you know, that kind of stuff. So what we're doing is very, very important to the economy moving forward. The corporate rate has been in every single meeting that we've had, because there are so many different tax teams. Everybody goes straight to the corporate rate, and how pivotal that was in setting a bar for our country by dropping it down to 21 like we had to keep us competitive. And so what we're doing now is going out and trying to learn and to listen. I know that my staff made a portal so that anybody can actually send us suggestions of things that are important. I'm a firm believer, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So there's certain things that hopefully we can leave alone. But there are things that we can tweak. And, of course, there's been a lot of legislation come through since 2017 that directly affects a lot of things, like you all. And I personally don't think we got it right, but that's because we weren't in charge also. But there are just so many things that we need to hear from you and learn from you. I have a speech, but I never do real well doing those. Anyway, okay. I am supposed to talk about what a proud energy state you all are, but we all know that there are several states that really make our country hum. And we all believe in exporting energy, and we all believe that energy security is national security. And so what we have to remember is government tends to choose winners and losers. I don't like that. It's very detrimental. Business likes certainty, so we need to keep things on an even keel, but there are issues that we need to tweak. And so we're here to listen to you. They have underlined, of course, intangible drilling costs and percentage depletion, which we know will be very important to you. And Professor Randy will know a lot more about a lot of those details. But we're here really to listen to you and how we can be helpful. I don't want to say we're here from the government and we want to help, because you know what that means. But we want to listen and learn from you what has been great, what is good, and where do we need some help. So I'm going to turn it back to you all.
Absolutely. No, we appreciate it for a minute. And just a preview of coming attractions, particularly for staff, that portal that you have. We have about 32 members. You might get about 32 separate submissions on corporate tax, IDCs, and some of the other things you flag. They're important to our industry, which we certainly want to get that out there. I'll stop talking, actually, and sort of pass it down to each of the company representatives so they can actually speak to the policy that gets enacted in D.C., good, bad, neutral, how that impacts their thinking on the ground in terms of strategic planning, operations, production, et cetera, because that's the real world impact. And you'll hear a lot about intangible drilling costs, IDCs, just because that is such an important main tax issue for E&P companies. But Nick, while I start with you and give a little bit of the lay of the land of, here's how y'all, at least at Chesapeake, think about the tax impact on various programs, maybe through the lens of IDCs.
Okay.
Take it where you want.
Cool. So our biggest issue is with the KMT and the impact it has without the deduction for IDC. Because sort of, I think most Republicans agree that it's just bad tax policy. You're putting something that's based on a different set of rules in GAAP and trying to apply the tax rules to it, which is just inconsistent. And so if you think about things in terms of tax, it's more cash-based and less sort of accrual-based. And GAAP, with the sort of noise they have into it, and by noise I mean non-cash items affecting income, that's what makes it a bad tax policy is you're taking non-cash items and you're saying, okay, your taxable income is going to be derived from that. And so when you think about IDC, intangible drilling costs, as you probably know, are just any cost to drill and a hydraulic fracture well. So the biggest cost of which is labor, and then everything else, steel to put in the ground, cement, all those sort of expenses. And unfortunately, when they named it intangible drilling costs, it sounds like it's some sort of big grand idea, and it's not. It's just workers and cement and drilling rigs. So in getting to the IDC piece of it, when you think about oil production or oil and gas production, you think about old vertical wells, you drill in the ground, and it produces for a long time. Well, with the shale, that I think are all member company shale, or for the most part, they deplete a lot faster.
Were you talking how fast? I mean,
Well, okay.
5 years, 10 years?
Well, the example I asked for was the Haynesville in Louisiana. And they said in the first year, we're getting between 30 and 50% of the overall production we're going to get. And by the second year, it's 50 to 80. And so that's what makes the cash flow of not deducting the IDC off, right? Because under the GAAP methodology, you're looking at your book depletion, and book depletion's on this thing maybe 8%. So you're looking at a significant mismatch in costs where you're spending all this upfront cash, 75 to 80% of the cost of drilling a well. And our wells in Haynesville and Marcellus are on average $8 to $10 million. So you're spending that all up front on costs you're not going to recover, and then you're going to take the deduction over that at 8% per year. Like the economics of it just don't line up. And so, with the change in the way oil and gas companies are operating in the last couple of years, it's changed from an old model of massively acquiring acreage and then that at all costs and outspending cash flow. Well, there's been a sort of paradigm shift amongst most companies in that you're living within cash flow. And so the tax burdens are going to start increasing where they maybe weren't there as much before. And so having this mismatch, it's going to drive up costs, or it's going to accelerate taxes because of that mismatch. And so we're going to be able to drill fewer wells. I mean, and again, I think the misnomer is this IDC is some sort of credit or something. It's a deduction. It's just a timing issue. And the timing of it makes sense because, again, you're putting the costs in the ground and you can't recover them. They're fixed. And then you have that much production coming on that quickly, it's...
Yeah, I was so it's a replacement of that production that
Yes.
is in jeopardy because you're not getting that deduction and that kind of trails all the way down the supply chain of the workers, everything that you want to do with the well.
Yeah, you continue to have to drill to just maintain your production because it's fallen off that fast. So if you're going to grow production, we're a pure play natural gas company.
So this is all happening all fracking. I mean, this is sort of all companies doing fracking would have this problem.
Yeah, it's drilling and fracking costs. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Across basins, across oil, across natural gas.
Go ahead, Mary Beth.
Like one example, at Antero, our capital cost annually is about $800 million. 80% of that is intangible drilling costs. IDC, 80% is intangible drilling costs. Quite tangible, right? That's called intangible drilling costs, but it's wages. It's money that you spend on small businesses around here. It's just everything that you use in operations. So, before IRA, you can recover those costs the same year that you spend them. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes. No, it's like,
You can recover those costs the same year that you spend them. The way it is now, you recover them over the life of the well, some future period of time. So, if you can't recover those costs, or you can't deduct those costs, then your financial income, your statement income is greater. If that's, if our intangible drilling costs are $640 million of that $800 million, 15% of that, our tax liability is $100 million. Now, some people might say, it's $100 million, send it to Washington. That's a tax that you should pay. But the trade-off of that is small businesses don't get that money, royalty owners don't get that money, people around here don't get that money, right? I mean, it's just about your theory of the world. Where do you think that oil and gas companies should spend their money? Should they send it to Washington, or should they spend it, reinvest it here to replace the energy resource and create jobs and investment? But none of these companies that are around the table existed Chesapeake longer than the Appalachian companies. Before 2008. I mean, all the Appalachian companies are 2008 and beyond. It's a remarkable ramp up in American energy production. I mean, you've heard about, 3 billion cubic feet of gas a day from one company, Antero, in West Virginia. The other companies
Saved West Virginia. It saved our budget.
Ohio too.
Absolutely.
And other companies have similar stories about being some of the, the top 10 energy producers in the country. And 15 years ago, it was just rock. It was just acres of rock, right? So it's a remarkable ramp up, and it's because of innovation, and it's because of investment. Mm-hmm. And, that's really the heart of the matter about why we need to fix this, because it's going to hurt innovation and it's going to hurt investment.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it is. And you mentioned steel, which when we think about supply chain in our world and what that means, all of Encino steel is manufactured here in Ohio. But all of our production is casing. So when you go out to Ascent Spring today and you see all that production casing on 4 of our rigs around Ohio, all of that is manufactured in steel country in Ohio. If the IDC solution isn't found, hopefully through your help, we may have to make tough decisions as companies where maybe we're not having, 4 rigs running, maybe it's 3. And so if you could, when you go out there today, visualize, if you can, the jobs, the thousands of jobs that it takes to bring that pipe in, when you see it, all the trailers. I mean, essentially, we're all general contractors, like home builders. And everything you're seeing represents thousands and thousands of jobs. And so when you said steel, cement, and workers, and as part of IDCs, right? And so that when you're thinking about IDCs from a big picture perspective, you're thinking about things like steel being made in the Rust Belt again. And that's real only because of what's happened with the Utica Shale and the Marcellus Shale in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Ohio. So the impacts are really profound, particularly in Appalachia. So if we start changing course, in spite of Biden's economy, our industry in Ohio has continued to grow. Our industry in the United States, in a lot of ways, has continued to grow, right? So I think it's just going to be, fantastic right now. So I would just, as you're going, especially as you go through the tour, think about that as you're seeing it.
I hate to say this, but it's because of during Trump's administration when the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was done and implemented. That's really what helped us recover from COVID. No doubt was the fact that all of that was in place. Mm-hmm. And now we're looking at the cliff.
Yeah.
And so that's why your input is so important, because the IRA, the three of us here sure didn't vote for it because there were more flaws than there were positives.
Yep.
And so those are the things that we need to hear about tweaking. And so keep going. But I had to brag a little bit about the TCJA.
Well, just what Mary Beth and Jackie said, I can't overstate the amount of economic development that's occurred because of the industry and the investment. We've over $100 billion in this state in the last decade because of oil and gas investments. $100 billion. We sit around and talk about the Intel plant in Ohio,
Coming.
which is great.
Sure.
Which is great. That's a $20 billion investment. That's only that's nothing compared to what oil and gas has done over the last decade. And so, that choice of where does that money go and what does that look like in the future, that's real decisions and that's real impacts for people in the state of Ohio.
I think one of the things that, part of that investment is in research and development.
Right.
When you look at the climate goals and some of the things that we're asked to obtain, having that ability to write that off or have that go away, it's going to behind some of the greater goals that, the other side wants us to achieve. And that's a big piece of it that's also a break off. And then a lot of this, is capitalized, and probably about 30% of it is capitalized in the first 5 years that you have in relation to your oil and gas development. And again, you expend that from 5 years and take it to 25 to 30, and that's a big change in what we're able to do.
Yeah. So that's a real good, important fact for us to know.
One other thing I want to note was I think the flaw in basing it on GAAP income is I've talked to our analysts, or I talked to our government or investor relations people, and they say the investors and analysts don't really care about GAAP income. In oil and gas right now, it's about free cash flow, and so which is a more representative thing that sort of marries up with what I'm saying is just matching the expenditures and the cash flow. And so GAAP income has so much some noise in it, like derivatives, and with derivatives, I don't know how familiar you guys are with the way it works. And for GAAP purposes, you do this what they call mark to market, and you have, let's say, a 3-year contract that's going out 3 years. Well, you look at it at the end of every year and say, what's the price you're going to sell it at? What's the price the forward curve say it is now? And then you have income or loss based solely on a non-cash item. And that's going to flow through in the KMT as well. So it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And the IDC deduction will help, like I said.
So why did they go down this path?
I think it was the theory that corporations are somehow cheating. I think a lot of it was offshoring companies because, people are seeing these big book income numbers and thinking that translates into taxable, like there's some sort of loophole in the tax code. No, there are companies that are doing that, but domestic U.S. onshore producers, it doesn't really work that way. If you're getting a significant amount of deductions, it's because you're spending money. And so at some point, you either keep drilling or the production happens, and then, you're completely profitable at that point.
So don't treat onshore and offshore the same.
I didn't say that, no. I represent a U.S. onshore company.
Leadership there. I think and Parker could probably hit on this a little bit better than I can, but the largest burden of eliminating the IDCs is on your domestic independent oil and natural gas companies, which account for more than 80% of the production here.
That's a nicer way of putting it.
The production,
I'm lobbying for us.
the production piece is important because you mentioned your other remarks. Energy security is national security, and I don't have. Well, look, first, you deserve to be taking credit for the TCGA and how you approached that, and trying to understand what was working through that, how that was foundational, and frankly, the catalyst to get us out of COVID and keep the economy humming. And now look at what IRA may have done. Now, what IRA has done specifically to us is this disparate treatment around IDCs. under a KMT. That is immediate to us. IDCs generally, on the production side, like I don't have the chart in front of me, and you guys can attest to it with your own operations. Look, we were at record levels of production with oil and natural gas. That is because you're seeing weak production. And if you don't have something like IDCs in general, or IDCs specifically under a KMT and the ability to deduct that immediately, you're not going to see new production. And if there's no new production, there's going to be a bit of a cliff that comes out 1, 3, 5 years in terms of our ability to increase production of oil and gas, for both domestically and to supply our allies internationally.
And how is your permitting?
The permitting process, it needs reform. Obviously we saw some big news this week out of the Senate. I think those are actually like significant reforms. I think that those are building blocks, and there's a lot of good things in there that is beneficial. Energy across the board, but particularly oil and gas. I think some of the bigger permitting issues are certainly on federal land management and use, and improvements there in terms of actually doing your onshore leasing, state by state by state, and improving not just the requirements to issue the land and what can be issued and leased, but also the leasing process. Now I'm getting on some real tangents. There's some real issues in terms of NEPA review, where I think judicial reform is pretty critical to when a decision is made, or environmental decision is made through NEPA. What you see is a lot of NGOs challenging that, and sort of trying to reverse those environmental decisions, and it delays actions on the land for years, if maybe ever. Those are the types of sort of big conceptual reforms that are really going to move the needle. I think we saw last week our part of improvements in terms of reform.
Congresswoman Miller was instrumental in getting the VP across the finish line. It's unfortunate it takes a literal act of Congress to get a pipeline bill, but that happened. And you know a lot.
You know who took all the credit. You all know who took all the credit.
I was with some of the folks that were very, very close to that and benefited greatly from MVP getting approved about 3 days after. And yeah, it's tough to say they were quite elated with the ability to get that done.
But lots of good help.
Yeah. And significant in terms of supplying energy, particularly across that region, the Mid-Atlantic and down south.
South Carolina, North Carolina, I'm very happy.
They should be,
Yeah.
particularly what that means of data centers and the surging demand that is looming, particularly in those areas of the country, outside of just your basic baseload. Is significant.
Thank you, Mayor Beth. Anybody have anything else that you just think we ought to know before we go out on the rig? But we do have a portal.
Can I just ask, I noticed as I was glancing through here, I noticed that Mike Carey has a bill in. It's 5073.
Yeah.
And it says technical and legislative fix. Does that do everything that you want to do? I mean, is that something you worked with Mike on? Is that what you're looking at?
It does. Okay. So just let's talk about that for a quick second. So one of the issues that we have been talking about specifically is, as a result of the IRA, the reintroduction of KMT, what that means for IDCs. Now, there are other capital expenditures under KMT that still have that immediate cost recovery deduction. IDCs is not one of them. So day before IRA gets enacted, there's no KMT, but IDCs are fine. Mm-hmm. Day after, if our companies are subject to KMT, we can't deduct immediately. What that legislation does, that we worked on with Kerry and Congressman Gonzalez out of Texas, is a technical fix of what was created in the IRA that defines book income and what deductions you can get from that. It now specifically includes IDCs. Whereas before in the IRA, it didn't. It was omitted. So that is a very specific targeted fix. What I would
go ahead.
What I'd also add, repeal the KMT. I'm not sure where y'all are thinking about that as well, but I think from our organization standpoint, we would support a repeal of the MOT. If the KMT has to stick around, then we absolutely need that fix to be able to get immediate cost recovery for tangible drilling costs that aren't so intangible.
But so does 5073 do what you need it to do?
Yes, yeah, that's the short answer is yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that is our
That's
fix.
what I was looking for.
We,
No,
we,
I'm kidding.
we worked on that with Congressman Kerry's office.
Okay.
Yeah.
Randy, you got anything?
You know, it was fetching. You that's more one thing, and what I'd say is, and it's more of a just a napkin number, but if you were to limit, if this were to move forward, you'd probably lose somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 25% of all the wells on an annual basis that would not be drilled.
Mm-hmm.
So if you wanted to back that into a number on what that means for taxes and, severance tax and all that, but it's probably, 20, 25% is not a bad number on what that potential would facilitate.
Mm-hmm.
It's sobering, truly. I mean, it really is. It's a sleeping giant. But I think, we've been dealing with the gator that's closest to the boat, to be honest with you, for the last several years, as you know. This gator is now the closest to the boat. And looking ahead for 2025, when we have our government affairs calls, this is like the issue that's coming to us. It's kind of like the other ones we've just been like blocking and tackling. Yeah. This one's like gonna all hit us on the face. Really serious consequences.
Yeah, and I know we're this friendly audience for us, right? And so we're talking about how to fix like this issue and protect IDCs. It is not lost on us is the importance of preserving IDCs, and hopefully that came through just in general of how important the deduction is. We've delved into how to fix this kind of weird issue as a result of the KMT. But yeah, I mean, look, 2025 is going to be a interesting year for tax. I have to tell you this. And so what we want to make sure is when we start looking for money to be able to extend a lot of these provisions in the TCJA, that folks aren't sitting around looking at us of, oh, well, what are IDCs? Do we really need those? So no, this is critical. This is a lifeline to upstream oil and gas, and our ability to exist today and produce more in the future.
You start talking about 25% of the wells like Rob did, and that's also an impact at the state and local level too, because you lose all of that, then you lose quarter your drilling.
Yeah, so putting numbers to that, just as a sense, we paid $510 million in lease bonus and royalty payments in 2023 alone. That was a little over $800 million in 2022. In taxes, covering both 22 and 23, severance, ad valorem, local taxes that go to benefit the community here in Ohio, that was north of $100 million in taxes. So extrapolate that out by what the rest of these companies do as well. Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Louisiana, everywhere else in the country. You're talking very significant numbers that are not going back in the local communities and into individuals' pockets because wells aren't getting drilled and replacement.
If and when any of you do come to D.C., you've got to stress that, because even some of the more conservative members of our party, they just think, well, let's just raise taxes a little more and there'll be more money. They don't understand that all that money you're talking about goes into the community. It goes into the Little League. It goes into a new part of the hospital or whatever that's in your community. It's hiring more people. It's money in their pocket going to Bilo or Dixie, whatever grocery stores we have right now. I know Kroger's, but Winn-Dixie, whatever. It all goes back into the community, and somebody is getting money in their pocket, as opposed to just taking money out of your pocket. Oh, it's just a couple more percentage points or whatever. So you need to lobby hard. We'll do our part. I mean, we did a great tax bill, and it's been laying in the Senate for how many months? They're doing nothing. Nothing. And if we got that across the line, and that was bipartisan, we have a 1 or 2 person majority at that point, and we worked as you expect us to work. We tried to do something that was bipartisan, but still where it needed to be to help our economy, and it's just laying there. So we really wanted that finished before 2025 so that we could concentrate on all this other stuff. And they're just sitting there I had one senator that I know very well say, well, we might get to that in 2025. It's too late. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you for your time and your expertise. And I always smile when I see Mary Beth because I've known her a long, long time.
Her husband interviewed me for a scholarship in 1988.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, she was on the front lines of the Horizontal Well Act in Charleston, 2011. That was, those were some late nights there trying to get our arms up.
Oh, and we took a 270-page bill and whittled it down to about 70 pages just to get a framework. And the lies people, I mean, you all are used to it, but you just pollute everything. You pollute the groundwater, you pollute the streams, you ruin the roads, you name it, you guys did it.
All you guys, you did it right today.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll be very impressed with the trophy.
Yeah. And we get better all the time by using ingenuity. And I've said a million times, I should have had a degree in chemistry before I ever decided to do this job. because I am from an energy state, as you all are, there's just so much I didn't know. And you just, all of our energy sources are so important. Mm-hmm. It doesn't just come out of the wall. It has to get there, in various forms. But instead of eliminating or just saying, can't do that anymore, we can't do that by 2030, we just need to keep working and getting better and using our ingenuity. And you guys do that every day, trying to fix it, trying to make it just a little bit better. And it was just so disturbing when the first week Biden was in and he cut off Keystone. I knew 300 workers went back to West Virginia just off of that. So multiply that by lots of things. So thank you, and we're looking forward to seeing. I don't have on all cotton, so do I have to go to jail or what?
I'm deferred to our safety experts.
Okay.
So you're going to get us suited up and ready to go.
Thank you so much. Okay.